everyone on the left, right, and center can agree that the justice system in America is flawed. But I don't think that many people understand the extent to which it is. Allow me to share some facts. According to an article in The Economist, 1/3 of all murders go unsolved in America. In other words, if you are killed, there is over a 33% chance that the perpetrator will get away with it. That is, of course, the average rate. In poor cities such as Detroit and New Orleans, the amount of unsolved murders can be as high as 66%. This chart right here is directly from the FBI's website. As you can see, at the top, here it confirms that only 62.5% of homicides are solved. But looking at other crimes paints an even dimmer picture. Only 40% of forcible rapes and only 28% of robberies are solved. So, if you get raped or robbed, they most likely won't catch the person who did it. Almost half of all assaults, almost 80% of larceny thefts, and almost 90% of all burglaries and motor vehicle thefts go unsolved. This is shocking, but it gets even worse. If you have ever had to go to court, you will know just how inefficient this system can be. According to an article in the New York Times, somewhere between 80 and 92% of civil cases settle outside of court because it is too costly to participate in the legal system. But criminal cases are even worse. The poor are often pushed into unfair deals by overworked public attorneys and end up in prison for crimes they didn't commit. A report by Ohio State University estimates that 10,000 people per year are wrongly convicted of crimes. To put that into perspective, I am currently 22. From the time it takes to go from now until I turn 60, an amount of people equivalent to the entire population of Chicago, the third largest city in America, will have been wrongly convicted. But here is where it gets really weird. Remember how earlier I showed that murder, rape, assault, and theft are being solved at shockingly low rates? You would think that, given this fact, even when taking into account the false convictions, that our prison population would be relatively low. But that is not the case. The US also has the highest prison population in the entire world. Yes, you heard me right, the entire world. In the United States, there are currently 2.3 million people locked up in prison or jail, 20% of which are there for nonviolent drug offenses. In fact, if we took out nonviolent offenses in general, it would virtually eliminate federal and youth imprisonment and would overall cut our prison population in half. This leads to a very important question. Why are we imprisoning people for nonviolent offenses? These people have not hurt anyone, and we are imprisoning them at a rate so high that it makes us have, by far, the largest prison population in the world. And of course, this disproportionately affects minorities. This chart shows that black people make up 13% of the general population, but 39% of incarcerations. In fact, there are now more black people in prison than there were slaves in 1850, during the height of the American slave trade. And of course, going back to our chart, a large portion of these crimes are due to nonviolent offenses. Now this is where it gets into the rather touchy subject of race in America. And regardless of where you stand on that issue, you have to acknowledge that many people are very frustrated because they perceive our justice system to have racial biases. But these are all criticisms that you have probably heard before. And I want to share with you two more issues that you may never have thought of. The first is that police do not provide protection. If you believe that someone is going to come and kill you, try calling the police and see what happens. They aren't your bodyguards. They aren't your private security. They will tell you to call back as soon as something happens. But when the serial killer is already in your house, it's too late. And that's the problem. Police have no incentive to prevent crimes from happening. Their primary job is to come to the scene after the crime was committed in order to punish the people who did it, if they can even find them. But here is an even bigger problem. Let's say that they do catch the murderer. And for the sake of argument, let's say you survived the attack. What happens next? They spend taxpayer dollars to prosecute and incarcerate the perpetrator. In this situation, someone breaks into your house, damages your furniture, hospitalizes you, almost kills you, And now you are stuck paying the taxes for this person to be locked in a cage for 20 years. And you will probably be paying for their imprisonment for the rest of your life, because the prison system does such a bad job at rehabilitating prisoners that, according to the National Institute of Justice, 75% of felons released from prison are rearrested again after just 5 years. I do not call that justice. Now, this may sound grim, but I have good news. There are alternatives. We don't have to live under the same system that brought us legalized slavery, alcohol prohibition, and Jim Crow. In recent decades, there have been massive breakthroughs in economics and political philosophy that shows us another way forward. If you are interested in learning more about solutions to these problems, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and click here to view my next video in this series. Also, be sure to check out my organization's website, ii.center, and consider contributing at patreon.com/LiamCardenas. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and as always, thank you for watching.